and welcome to the program. I'm Brennan in Darwin. Coming up, the ship from the history books that's helping young Indigenous people find a new career.
Yeah, because the mast is rolling back and forward with the boat and rocking every wave you hit. The mast feels it just as much, and you're just clinging on with all your life, hoping that your harness is as safe as they say it is.
The Northern Land Council has teamed up with one of the big banks to help Aboriginal groups develop business ventures on the coast. It comes 3 years after a High Court decision ruled Indigenous people control more than 80% of the top-end coastline. Lucy McNally reports.
The NLC has the land, the NAB has the cash, and both organisations say it makes sense for them to do business.
We don't want handouts or hand-ups. We need to stand shoulder to shoulder with the corporate sector.
The Land Council hopes Indigenous people can set up businesses such as fishing and tourist enterprises on their land. It's already happening in New Zealand, where native title laws have allowed Maori to set up businesses in areas where they traditionally fish.
They own a lot of the fishing enterprises, so there's ownership, not just participation in catching fish, but there's also participation in the value chain.
The bank will provide financial advice and loans and says it's confident this agreement will lead to profitable ventures.
We'll be in it as long as they need us, but what we really are helping out is in the planning phase.
The Land Council says money made from new ventures will be put straight back into the communities.
Build our own schools, provide our own teachers, build our own health clinics, have our own doctors.
A big question arising from the Blue Mud Bay decision was whether individuals would have to pay for permits to fish in Indigenous waters. That question remains unanswered, with the Land Council still negotiating with the Northern Territory Government. But the NLC says, all that aside, today's agreement represents an exciting opportunity for the many Aboriginal clans affected by the High Court ruling.
A ban on pregnant women drinking and an Aboriginal lifestyle show. A prominent academic says government policymakers are too politically correct and they need to become much more creative to tackle Indigenous disadvantage. James Glenday has more.
It might seem like a grand dream, but could Aboriginal versions of popular lifestyle and home renovation shows improve conditions in Indigenous communities?
I'd love to get a drill and go into some homes and just put up some cup hooks. They're just very simple things that could work for Aboriginal communities.
Child malnutrition and fetal alcohol disorders are rife in isolated, poor and largely uneducated communities across Northern Australia.
From there on, their lives are similarly blighted.
Prominent and well-respected Aboriginal activist, advocate and academic Professor Marcia Langton says current government policies aren't solving the problem, and it's time to explore more creative ideas, like banning pregnant Aboriginal women from drinking.
Nobody's going to do that anytime soon, but let's talk about the idea. Why would it be a good thing? Why wouldn't it work? Let's go through the pros and cons, but we can't even have the debate because of the level of hysteria.
Professor Langton made the calls during a lecture held in honour of Aboriginal rights activist Vincent Lingiari, but her appearance was marred by controversy. Descendants of Mr Lingiari boycotted the speech.
She supports the basic card. In principle, the government has violated our human rights.
Professor Langton refused to speak about the boycott, but says political correctness and a lack of open and vigorous debate is stifling Aboriginal development.
For many Indigenous Australians, Captain James Cook's ship of discovery, the Endeavour, is a symbol of invasion. But the Australian Maritime Museum's working to change that, and a group of young Indigenous men has even joined the crew as part of an employment program. Sarah Everingham reports.
All the missing course, 26P, 26P. Free the sheets to the foretop mast jib.
It's pretty full on the Endeavour.
And main haul.
Yeah, it was quite a challenge.
It's the voyage of a lifetime. 13 months on the high seas circumnavigating Australia in a full-scale replica of the historic Endeavour.
What you do, just sweep the horizon where it's a little bit clear.
For 19-year-old James Clarke from Darwin, it was a rare trip outside the Northern Territory.
That was my first time over in Queensland ever, so I enjoyed just looking around at Cairns, the scenery to the Horn Islands and the waters, totally different colour to over here.
Hauling on the sheets.
Even though he's a keen sailor, nothing prepared him for the hard work on board.
Well, that was a lot different to being on a power-driven vessel. A lot of rope work, so you had to play with a lot of ropes, and watch the wind a lot as well.
Once on board, he took one look at the mast and was horrified at the thought of climbing it. But soon he overcame that fear.
Yeah, because the mast is rolling back and forward with the boat and rocking every wave you hit. The mast feels it just as much, and you're just clinging on all your life, hoping that your harness is as safe as they say it is.
James Clarke is one of 6 young Indigenous men already training in the maritime industry who joined the crew to sail from Thursday Island to Darwin.
Okay, so pull that out and feed it down. Yep.
You can hop aboard a modern tug, but rope handling, learning the blocks and pulleys, the ratio of how to pull a line in, and basic navigation is always a good sounding, and it all derived from these types of ships, so it's a wonderful foundation.
On this floating museum, the crew worked and slept almost as it was done on the original ship.
Back to midships!
No, it's not a comfortable boat. That's 18th century sailing for you.
After 2 weeks on the water, the Endeavour has arrived in Darwin. The trainees are home, and this is where they disembark.
Good to see you.
Relieved to be again on dry land.
I want a boat with engines.
In Darwin, the trainees are preparing for their coxswain certificate exams just 5 weeks away.
A bit more to starboard.
A little bit worried because I still need a fair bit of work to do.
It's going to be a very big achievement. I'm looking forward to getting it as well. You get a bit of a pay rise as well, so I'm looking forward to that.
Yep. Go to starboard. All these fellas are good fellas and we'll give them a job. We've got heaps of work happening, so we need workers. Just kick it ahead with a little bit of port rudder.
Ben Wall's company has taken on the Indigenous trainees through an employment program run with the federal government. He's been in the industry for 18 years and wants to see Indigenous people benefit from the growing demand for workers.
Pull her out of gear. We believe it's to give people a fair income go and a go in the industry. We'll have another go.
21-year-old Mattay Wood never thought he'd have the chance to learn these skills. His education was cut short before he'd started high school, and up until now the lack of qualifications has held him back.
I reckon it's good, because I found it hard to get into a lot of jobs, and they've helped me a lot to get all my skills up and that, and I like the job.
But there are challenges. To gain their coxswain certificates, the 6 trainees will have to pass written exams.
Well, all of the boys are at different levels of literacy, so trying to get them through as a group, there requires a bit of juggling to get the boys up to an equal level.
I'm proud of the boys, and yeah, I hope they can get their tickets. Free the sheets to the foretopmast jib.
These young trainees are looking forward to long careers on the water. No matter what happens in the future, they'll never forget their epic voyage on the Endeavour.
Being out on water is one of the best things, escaping reality on land.
Aboriginal musicians from around the country were celebrated recently at the National Indigenous Music Awards. Veterans say the Indigenous music scene is more diverse than ever, but there was just one performer who scooped the pool. Singer Jeffrey Gurumul took home all the major gongs. Thousands packed Darwin's natural amphitheatre to enjoy performances from Indigenous rockers old and young. Held in the Northern Territory for several years, this is the first time artists from around the country were nominated for the awards. Singer Jeffrey Gurumul won 5 of the 7 categories, including Best Act, Album and Song of the Year.
I'll tell you what, Gurumul, you done it again, old mate.
The notoriously shy singer who was born blind wasn't there to collect his awards. But he did make a brief appearance, beamed in from his island home in Arnhem Land. Band No Fixed Address was inducted into the Hall of Fame. Its frontman says the Indigenous music scene is flourishing.
We've got our own industry. We didn't back in the 70s.
Many in the industry say musicians from remote areas of Australia are finding more success.
And it won't be very long before a lot more young Indigenous musicians are making their mark on Australia.
It's a unique mark that's slowly getting more mainstream recognition.
It was billed as a theatre performance like no other. A performance at Melbourne's Malthouse Theatre was beamed live into an Aboriginal community in Central Australia. The play about Albert Namatjira's life was shown in his home community, and its residents played their own part in the performance. Here's Tom Nightingale.
Every day, the people of Ndaria live with the legacy of Albert Namatjira, but they're not used to the views seen by the rest of Australia.
You see, Albert thinks that he can use this blue magic, not for the art, but for the money, so he can stop making those stupid brooms.
The play shows how Namatjira was taught to paint by a Victorian watercolourist, Rex Batterby.
So first try some of those crayons on those cardboard boxes there.
He quickly outstripped his teacher, found international fame, and supported hundreds of relatives with his income and influence. But he died a broken man after a stint in jail for supplying alcohol to relatives.
Well, we are proud of Albert, yes, what he did for his people. But there's other background that I can't talk about.
This performance was seen 2,500 kilometres away, but wasn't trouble-free.
Organising an event in such a remote location where, most people can't even get mobile phone range out here.
But the signal soon returned with two-way webcasting showing the Ndaria Choir and a video of local children to be seen in Melbourne. Organisers say this project's use of live simulcast could be one of the most remote Australia's ever seen. But it's also a chance to show Albert Namatjira's people, including some descendants, just how nationally significant his story is.
So I know it means a lot for people to be able to see Albert come home, in a sense, to his community.
Decades after he died, Albert Namatjira's life story continues to cross the divide between white and black Australia.
And that's all for this edition of the Indigenous Quarter. You can read more Indigenous news on the ABC website. From here in Darwin, bye for now.